not for dealing with ICE, but we do try to, I mean, there are a bunch of circumstances in which, depending on how your interaction, if you're an immigrant, particularly if you're undocumented or if you have a criminal record, depending on how your interaction goes with the cop at the street level is actually going to determine whether or not you get to the precinct, get fingerprinted, and then, you know, all of these other things come into play. So I think what we do try and do is give people some of those tools of dealing with the cops in those moments, and then give people opportunity to sort of role play it and practice it.
So I think this is like a little fire. You know, you're getting from one hand and the other at the same time.
Yeah.
And so you're in a really almost defenseless position. And so if people can at least have some tools to how, and I'm not saying just defending your rights, how to manage an encounter with the police. I think it's an important, especially to the suspect. You don't really want to get arrested. Because the laws are stuck against you, your fingerprints will go to the database, then you're done.
So I mean, I think we should talk, you know, to figure out what's going to be best for your community.
Okay.
I have a question. Yeah, I have an immigration concern. Via the post 9/11 Patriot Act and the broad, ambiguous definition of terrorism,
Yeah.
how prevalent is it that an immigrant who's not a terrorist can get caught up in a situation where, while the deportation process is going on, they're not given the sacred right to habeas corpus. They're not brought to court where the authorities have to explicitly say why they're being held, to initiate discovery and defense. And then before their relatives and friends and supporters know what's going on, the deportation process has already taken place and they're gone. How prevalent is that?
Well, I mean, I think there are a few ways to answer that question, but I think, you know, for example, here in New York, one of the biggest reasons that ICE was using to try to get New York to sign on to secure communities was that it was this anti-terrorism tool, right? And then nobody wants to look like you're weak on terrorism, right? And so, and that's part of the reason why it kind of like flew under the radar and got passed so, and that didn't get passed in the sense of a law, but they allowed it to happen right here. And then, but when you talk about stuff like habeas corpus and stuff like that, I mean, CCR can weigh in too, but like, that's really just such a farce when it comes to deportation proceedings, right? There's not even a right to counsel, so, you know, talking about terms like habeas corpus almost in many ways can be meaningless.
Yes.
You heard of the case, Wakewood versus Bureau of Prisons, where fingerprinting has been found to be not quite what it's been cracked up to be. It's a critique of evidence science written by a student forensic science technician, John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And it's being distributed now on the internet, hard copy, and word of mouth by a person whose family was in the NYPD, ironically. Okay, the same with DNA. It recently hit the High Court, Supreme Court in Washington. It was ruled in favor of the government, but being that it's a technology, at the end of the day, in similar fashion, DNA is DOA, dead on arrival, for both the ICE, the FBI, all 50 states, territories, possessions, even around the world, since the identity is itself the same throughout humanity. Have you heard of that case?
So there are various challenges to ESCOM now. Some of them are actually based on a lot of privacy concerns. Some of them are, you know, based on surveillance issues, and a lot of it, and overlappingly, you know, a lot about the potential for error when it comes to fingerprints. And I think, you know, I think to kind of just broaden out our perspective even a little bit more, you know, programs like ESCOM, I think, like, for example, we in our immigration world view as like a big, big deal. But when it comes to the federal government, it's a tiny piece of the puzzle, right? And that's because the government is really on this big kick to have this initiative called the NGI, right?
Next
Generation Identification. And that's not only fingerprints, but it's like iris scans, like all this like wonky science fiction stuff, right, come to life. And it's really about their way of building a database for everybody in order to be able to track and surveil. And so SCOM is really just one tiny piece of it, and fraught with errors just like most of the other components.
These books that are written on to tell you how to create war errors, that's where they found where the limits lie, and either the government knew it or kept it a secret, or it was leaked, or they didn't know it at all, and it was leaked in spite of them, like Daniel Ellsberg, Pentagon Papers, Julian Assange, and Bradley Manning with WikiLeaks. It's now on the internet. So, once they lose that ability, it's like a who's who are you? When you go to a public library reference stacks, it's who's who are you, business, government. Now the whole identity. Nowadays, they bring the record by wireless to you. They don't bring you to the record. Okay, NYPD's trial program where they take the print examiner, it looks like a cell phone, to anybody and everybody across time and place to build that record you mentioned. But the bottom line is, the people on the other side aren't taking it lying down. Okay? Even the technicians working for the government ostensibly have turned traitor, turned tail, and leaked the secrets to the whole world at their expense. And don't forget the flip side of the proverbial identity coin. Thank you.
Yes, here's your hand.
Okay. I know that we're talking about immigration, but I had to bring that up because Julia and I were part of the End Stop and Frisk, Stop Mass Incarceration, and I wanted to tell you what happened yesterday. We signed up to march on the West Indian Parade, and Bloomberg's private army denied us the right to march. Even though we paid the fee, we had the contingent number where one number would be for us to march, and the cops, we have pictures. I have pictures of them. Actually, it was like a line of cops. They don't only have one barricade, they have 4 barricades for not to let us march. Okay, 4 barricades. That's what they did yesterday. And not only they did that, this is something that I just realized today that they did. I know that a lot of time, there are some people that I had approached and told me on my face that they like Stop and Frisk. But what the people they don't understand, that if that were the Caucasian side of it, this will never happen in New York City, especially in New York City. But it's against Black and Latinos, so that is fine. And this is why when we talk about affirmative action, you believe in affirmative action or not, the fact is that every time that they take affirmative action into the court, they say it's reverse discrimination. But how about us? Because then it's a discrimination wide open, but people always say it's reverse discrimination. And that is a problem. But if you believe in affirmative action or not, that is fine. But look at the meaning when these cases they go to court. That means that it's okay to discriminate, and we always have been discriminated. There is no question about it. But going back to the march, this is what they did. They always talk about crime, black on black crime. Okay? They always talk about that. They took this family that her son was killed, I think in July. And they had the group of that family member with poster of this kid, laminated pictures. And I'm 100% sure that it was the police department who had given all the work, all the paperwork and everything for them to be there, because the mother believes, of course, it's a woman of color, that she believes in a stop and frisk. But she doesn't understand that a stop and frisk it doesn't stop crime. But if they were right next to us on the parade, okay? They were right next to us. Then what happened was, Julia and I, we were inside already where you can march. But then we decided to get out because we finally found our group. So when we got there, That was the commotion that the cops, they were telling us the cops didn't let us in. So then there was a group that the cops said, oh, you could march behind the Catholic group, okay? So of course, I said, I don't want to march behind the Catholic group, but it's okay, we will march. When the Catholic group went in, they had a little space for them to go in, and they were a big group. So I didn't have the color, but I just went in with them. That's what I did. I just went in with them. Nobody else from our group went in. So I didn't know if I could go out again, if I should go out again, or if I should march. So what I decided, I said maybe I should go and march with Occupy Wall Street, because they were there. The union invited Occupy Wall Street, but you know what? When I went back to look for Occupy Wall Street, the cops, yes. And then I saw that they didn't see me because I saw what the commotion, what was happening with that. So I went back and I said, well, what should I do now? So I stayed there and I decided to march with a group. So I took one of the signs from another group. I took my my sign and my whistle and I put it in front. But sometimes I used to cover if I saw the white shirt. But I was marching, and while along the march with that group, I didn't even know who they were. I used to go to the line, and I used to tell them, on September 13th, there's going to blow your whistle against a stop and frisk. That's going to be our action. And I used to come back into the group. Then a gentleman who was part of that big group, he saw me, and I guess he didn't know what I was doing. So he saw me, and he was like looking and looking. So what I did, I covered the whistle and the thing, and then I just went like nothing was happening. So I had to stop doing it, but that's what I was doing. But the cops, they didn't, you know what was their explanation? That they didn't want to see us there. We had 2 humongous banners. And we already had signed up, and we were legally
And paid.
paid to march on the parade. And we're talking always about the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system was created by the elite class to work against us. That's why it can't be fair. And it's not fair, and it will never be fair. It doesn't matter if you're a person of color, and if you're a poor Caucasian. It's to work against us.
Adrian, did you say that? I heard on the news today, actually, that Occupy Wall Street.
You've heard on the